Okay everyone, welcome back to the channel. So we have our first insight into the leaked God of War multiplayer game, which was canned by Sony at the start of this year because apparently they saw no long-term future into this project. So go figure, guys. Sony recently, to be honest, their decisions are pretty poor in terms of live service gaming. I mean, I don't know how much money they lost over the last 2 years in this, but I'm sure it's a lot of money. So let's start off. This is from the website MP First, the first ever images of the game, which is pretty cool. Just a reminder, the studio which created this game initially was the Bluepoint Games, and then the cancellation was because effectively the long-term viability of the project, as you can see, it wasn't something that Sony was comfortable with. So let's get on, guys. These are the images. Let's look because this is quite interesting stuff. Now, the screenshots from the project that were shared offer a good glance at an early stage of development, showing some assets and environments that were being worked on for the title. The first noticeable detail is that we are going back to the Greek settings. You can tell straight away this is Greek influence 100%. This is evidenced by the presence of Greek temples, classic artifacts, pottery, and other details we will discuss later. So these are some of the images of the environments. As you can see, the environments are pretty small, so that means that this was more like an action, most likely a third-person game, potentially, right? Where you would run around and fight physically, potentially jumping around, you know. Like, there's not a lot of room for transversal, I guess, right? If you can see here. So, you know, conflicts would be straight away, like you would just have to fight because you could not avoid your enemy. So yeah, very like tunnel kind of style, as you can see here. Looks pretty cool in terms of like graphics and, you know, like design. Looks pretty nice, like the Greek mythology, so to speak, right? Which is pretty cool there. Some interiors as well. The forge, this is like a forge, pretty cool. We have like a broken balcony here. This is like some sort of like place where I guess you would spawn, potentially. This could be a spawning place for your base. This is a Ares. Maybe this is like Ares' area of spawning, most likely. Like a broken temple there. Pretty interesting. Like a swamp thingy. This is like maybe like a dangerous swamp with like toxic water. Yeah, some platforms here, some models for some temples, some indoors, pretty interesting stuff here. So that's it. This is all the stuff we see here. Now, in addition to the temple exteriors, we can see other environments such as caverns and interiors that appear to have been designed to accommodate multiple players, such as armory stocked with weapons and shields. Another interesting detail for those familiar with the lore is the apparent inclusion of the god Hades, at least in name. We were told that Hades would have been the owner of the armory as well as the yellow sulfur poles visible in the caverns. So if the game was meant to fit the established canon at all, the involvement of a living Hades suggests the timeline prior to the events of God of War 3. That's if this game was meant to be canon in any way. Otherwise, it could have been just anything goes kind of thing, not connected with the main God of War franchise, which I believe that could have been the case anyway, right? Another thing of note is the clear Greek-inspired architecture evident in the buildings, but some environments look like they were plucked from God of War 2018 and Ragnarok. There appears to be a female statue holding a mask, which reminds us the statue of the original God of War games, though we aren't sure whether it's a god associated with wearing mask. Then there's what appears to be statues of possible soldiers holding a shield and spear, something that would associate with Spartans. But their appearance also comes off as one of the Einherjar, the Norse warriors who reside in Valhalla in God of War Ragnarok. You can also see several weapons on display that have a hint of green, which reminds a little of the weapons of the Berserkers and the other enemies used in 2018 God of War Ragnarok. Also, considering that the size of the previous mentions pool is shown in the comparison with player mockup, we can only speculate whether they would have had a specific function in terms of gameplay. So as you can see here, it changes a bit. So you have like this little like thing here, and here is not So that's pretty interesting stuff. So I guess the braziers would like, or this kind of summoning pool at the bottom would, or be some sort of like thing you would interact with, I guess, right? Yeah, pretty interesting stuff, to be honest. Returning to Hades' armory, we notice that the one picture shows the place looks different as a red corrosion seems to have taken in the area. This state is described as a curse on the armory, suggesting it could be inflicted with a negative status effect on the players inside. In the end, though, PlayStation lacked the confidence in the game in the long-term viability. This move is understandable considering the poor reception most live service games receive from PlayStation fans, especially given the fairly recent example of Concord. I think once Concord came out and it was a massive flop, you guys saw it right on Steam and on PlayStation. The game got cancelled just literally 11 days after launch. It got deactivated, which is just crazy, and full refunds were given to the gamers. So you can imagine that, you know, like they had zero confidence in if a shooter, first-person shooter hero game cannot succeed, what about a third-person melee action game? It just wouldn't happen, right? Now, there's reports that Bluepoint has started work on another project, a third-person melee action game, according to the job listings. The possibilities for the subject of their next project are wide, but the most helpful Bluepoint fans are proposing a remake of the original God of War, which is a possibility. Project many God of War enthusiasts have been requesting for years. So yeah, if they make a remake of the first God of War, honestly, I'm in for it. Just imagine, like, with the graphics of God of War Ragnarok, you make a new, like the first God of War, that would just be crazy. That would just be impressive, right? Because let's just remember, the first and the second God of Wars was on the PlayStation 2, not on the PlayStation 3. So the PlayStation 2 was much more limited capacity-wise. And yeah, so making a, you know, proper, like, maybe like remaster of God of War 3 would be great. But they really need to make a remake of the first and the second one because they're super old. And yeah, making a remake of them, I think personally, would be nice. Would be really nice. Given Bluepoint's history on excellent remakes such as The Shadow of the Colossus and Demon's Souls, this would be a highly promising project. Furthermore, since we now know more the studio has already working with Greek settings, they could potentially take advantage of the work and assets already developed and transition them into the God of War remake. So guys, that's it for today's video on this one. Honestly, I am a bit relieved, to be honest, that this game did not came out because it just looks like a waste of money. Like, I understand they want to, you know, use the cow machine to make lots of cash with the IP and the God of War because it's still very popular amongst fans. But like, there's ways to go around it. If you just release slop and just release like this, like, the game would have done okay for like the first 3 to 4 months, I guess, but then people would stop playing it, and again, it would just be a waste of money. So Sony made a smart decision here. Like, Sony really, guys, if you're a Sony developer and you watch this video, which is unlikely, but there's a small chance, guys, you are good at making single-player story games. Just focus on what you do the best, because that's going to give you a profit, that's going to give you money, and you're not going to lose money into the, you know, live service conundrum, basically, which people are not going to play, and then you're going to lose money. You have to fire people, you have to basically sack people just because you want to follow the trends, and the trends just do not agree with you, which is the problem, because to make a proper good live service game takes experience, knowledge, and understanding your target audience, which I'm pretty sure at this point is pretty obvious that Sony is really struggling with that final point. Like, they don't understand what their audience wants and the product they release. I mean, see at Concord, like Concord was just so, I don't know, like, apart from the actual character designs, which are really terrible, like the character designs and everything was really like boring and like ugly. Apart from that, the actual gameplay itself, like, was not fresh enough to like make it, like, you know, make people play for like months. Like, after playing like 5 rounds, basically, it kind of got repetitive, honestly. So yeah, here it is, guys. That's it for today's video on this one. As always, I shall see you guys later in the next one. But yeah, a cancelled God of War game, multiplayer. We finally have the images, and honestly, I do hope that Bluepoint Games is actually making the remake, because that would be great. Demon's Souls was amazing, was awesome, it was really good, the quality of it, the graphics were really nice. So yeah, time will tell. So guys, that's it for today's video. As always, I shall see you later in the next one. Bye.